Welcome to Betting with the Bag. It's the AM edition for Friday, July the 12th. I'm Ian Cameron filling in for Jimmy, who is, of course, back in my neck of the woods here in Canada, here in Toronto, and ready to meet up with him tonight. Before we get into the show, obviously, we got to mention that. It is our low bag convention, party, gathering, get-together, whatever you want to call it. It's happening tonight, downtown Toronto. It starts at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Basically, arrive if you're in the area and are coming down. Show up anytime after 6 p.m. We're going to be at Wild Wing in downtown Toronto. That's at the corner of King and Bathurst. It should be a lot of fun. There's a bunch of people that I've seen at previous events that when Jimmy's come back to town. It's probably going to be a lot of that same group. The Toronto area low baggers, anyone in the Southern Ontario region, certainly hoping to see a lot of you down there tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll definitely have some baseball going on tonight. There's a CFL game tonight. If you're into the more periphery sports, there's obviously NBA Summer League's been going on for the last week and a half. WNBA continues to happen on a daily basis. So excited. There's going to be a lot of stuff to wet our whistle betting-wise tonight for sure down there. So if you're in the Toronto area, Southern Ontario, absolutely. Make sure you join us there for that. Should be a lot of fun. Welcome to everybody that's watching and everybody in the chat. Last time I hosted this show, filling in for Jimmy, I mentioned it. I did a terrible job in terms of neglecting the chat, and the chat is a big part of what makes the show flow and what makes the show. You're the engine that gets the show running for us on a daily basis. The people in the chat, the people that tune in. So I will want to acknowledge them: Dennis Garcia, Ty Clinton, Ben Sports 24/7, Carlos Porro, Shadow, Rich G, Flip Money, Jonathan Succi. Welcome, and hopefully a lot of you a lot more joining us as well. MVP Sports, Steven Stucci, how are you, man? I miss seeing you. It's been a while. Russell Gordy, hello, welcome in, a regular on the chat. Jorge Don't Play, welcome in as everyone continues to file in. Look, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys right off the hop here. My serious MLB betting is done for the year. I always wrap up MLB at the All-Star break. That's just the way I've done it. It's been what works best for me for the last several seasons. I find my best edges and my best performances in the first half. Second half, I find the value dwindles. The value dissipates. It gets a little trickier. And guys get called up, sent down. You got a lot more young faces in a lot of these lineups as the season goes on. So I do bet MLB second half of the season, but I don't go serious with it like I do in the first half. Smaller plays, smaller unit sizes, smaller wager amounts. That's what I look at. I definitely still looked at this card so we could be ready to go for this show. But I just want to make this full disclosure right off the hop. Any leans, opinions I'm giving on the show on today's card when it comes to Major League Baseball, and it should be this way always. You should always formulate your own opinion. You should never, ever blindly tail what someone else says. You should have confidence and faith in your own abilities, as a bettor and a capper, to say, hey, just use the information that anybody else gives you, secondhand as just a piece of the puzzle that you use to solve in the handicap, to solve that handicapping puzzle on a daily basis. So definitely this is one of the, and this is to me, and it's a big reason why, the All-Star break, I always said, I'm going to cool it a little bit when it comes to MLB, just scale back and then focus more on getting ready for football at this time of year. But this has always been the one card each year, that full first day after the All-Star break, where it is absolutely a minefield, in my opinion. Especially when you look at situations where, the pitching situation, what's it going to be like? Now, I think when I look up and down this card, we really don't have anybody in terms of starting pitchers today that pitched in the All-Star game on Tuesday night. Certainly not anybody that pitched extended innings in the All-Star game on Tuesday night. So that's really, really good to see, in my opinion, because then that's one of those extra elements, extra complicated elements that maybe can hurt you a little bit. So we're going to get through this card. We'll go quickly, as quickly as I can possibly go. We know that long-windedness is sometimes an issue with me, but we'll try to breeze through this card quickly, rapid fire, and looking forward to it. Let's update the chat, see how it's going here. Jeff Joseph, A. Hilly, Jeff Crockett, Diedrich Davis, Ralph Portuando, Joe Anisik, Marcus Johnson, Bryce Fidel, Guru Sports Bets, Marcus Johnson, Doug Barnhouse, Joe Anisik I'm on the Nats first 5, Pittsburgh money line, San Francisco, Milwaukee over, Arizona first 5, and over 8.5. I'll tell you what about the Pittsburgh game. I mean, Yu Darvish has been a train wreck at Wrigley Field. He really, really has. It's been an absolute nightmare for him. That's an interesting dog, and that's actually one that I'm interested in, Pittsburgh. We'll get to that in a second. Let's see what else we have here. I don't like the Cubs playing on a Friday, says Marcus Johnson. I don't like the Cubs pitching on any day with Yu Darvish at Wrigley. That's the way I look at it. You talk about a guy that's not pitched well in that park. He's out there laying minus 165. And look at last night with the Houston Astros. You know, a team that's had a great first half, a team that's had tons of World Series aspirations this season, team that sent a lot of guys to the All-Star week festivities and the All-Star game. What happened to the Houston Astros last night? Absolutely flat as a pancake last night in that game. End up getting shut out 5-0 by the Texas Rangers in the one and only game that took place in Major League Baseball last night following the All-Star break. Russell Gordy saying you versus Archer like Cubs. Archer blows. Yeah, that is the caveat to all this. If you like Pittsburgh on the money line, I don't trust Darvish one bit at Wrigley Field. He's been terrible. But the other consideration is you got to trust Yu Darvish on the other hand. And we're talking about a pitcher in Yu Darvish that, as I bring up the numbers here in just a second here with Yu Darvish, not very good. 5.01 ERA or 5.49 ERA overall this season. On the road, 7.89 ERA this season for Chris Archer. Hasn't been good at all. 26 runs allowed in 29.2 innings of work. Now, going into the All-Star break, Archer did pitch a little bit better. A little bit better. I'm not saying he was great, but when you're giving up 7 runs and 4 runs and 6 runs and 7 runs in the majority of starts like he was, and then all of a sudden you have 3 starts before the break, you give up 3 runs or less in all 3, that's a positive. He did face the Cubs right before the All-Star break, gave up 3 runs, 5 hits, 5 innings in that start. Pirates won that game 6-5. He was matched up with Darvish in that game, July the 3rd, at PNC ballpark in Pittsburgh. So this is a rematch, basically, of that starting pitching matchup. Darvish gave up 4 runs on 7 hits, 6.2 innings of that game. Again, that was won by Pittsburgh, 6-5. I'm going to keep it simple. I know Archer's untrustworthy. I get it. But he's not the guy that's laying $1.65 here. The guy that's equally untrustworthy, Yu Darvish, is the guy laying $1.65. So I'll tell you right now, it's Pittsburgh or nothing for me. Definitely from a money line perspective. I would only look toward the Pirates here. The over definitely makes a lot of sense. Welcome to my man Ski Prophet. I always enjoy his work and doing shows with him in the past. 9.5. The thing is, I love my overs, and I certainly think over 9.5 sticks out like a sore thumb in this game. The Pirates and the Cubs, this matinee affair at Wrigley, typical 2:20 p.m. Eastern start time at Wrigley on a Friday. That's par for the course usually for what we see with the Chicago Cubs at home in terms of the start time. But you always worry. This is the first day back from the break. A lot of these the lineups haven't been out there in full. With a lot of these teams, other than the guys that participated in the All-Star game, you're talking about guys that haven't been in the lineup now or in a baseball game since Sunday. So it's that weird time where, you're basically used to playing every day or at the very least having a day off here and there. Now, all of a sudden, all these guys that are coming back into off the All-Star break, they haven't been in a game situation since Sunday. So that's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's 4 full days, and that's totally irregular of what these players go through throughout the entire season. So that's the one hang-up that I have with just going full bore on, two bad starting pitchers here, 2 pretty good lineups. Certainly, in theory, looks like a good over bet, but you always have to factor in that concept of the little bit of a layoff now that these players have had. Are the bats going to be in full swing tonight? Obviously, we have one game last night that's in the books, Houston, Texas. We only saw 5 runs in that game. all of them scored by Texas. Total was 10.5 in that game. Obviously stayed well under the total. So personally, I would go forward with the over in this game, and I would go forward with the over in games where I really feel, hey, we've got two bad starting pitchers. We've got two pretty good, capable lineups. But the way, you've got situations coming off the All-Star break where, your hitters have been basically sitting around for 4 days for the most part, other than the guys that were participating either in the home run derby or the All-Star game on Monday or Tuesday. So it's definitely something you want to consider. I love overs. Almost 90% of my totals are overs, people say, Ian, why do you hate unders so much? I don't hate unders. I don't win unders. I do not win unders, and it's not me making too big of a deal of it. It is simply I have no luck whatsoever betting an under. I'll give you an example. I thought the Ottawa-Saskatchewan CFL game a few weeks ago, I thought that was a tremendous under. Saskatchewan's defense underrated. Cody Fajardo starting on the road at quarterback. Dominique Davis having to play a pretty good defense for the first time. I thought that was a really good under. Really good under. It had no shot. None. Zero. No shot. The game ended 44-41. 85 points. Flew over the total. In fact, that damn game went over the total in the second quarter. And that's been my history with unders. So people that ask, why do you bet so many overs and hardly any unders? It's not that I hate unders. If it makes sense to me, I'd love to bet an under. I just flat out don't have luck with unders. For some reason, my handicapping process is clearly not good enough when it comes to unders because you have a situation like that where it didn't even come close. And that's exactly why I'm saying, to hell with unders. That's why I don't bet too many. And that's why I'm always very worried. I'm filled with trepidation every time I like something to go under the total. And that's definitely the concern. But for me, with this game, as we move along, we got to pick up the pace here. We got an hour to get through these, but definitely lean Pittsburgh, lean over the total, 9.5 here with the Pirates and the Cubs. Let's check out the chat, update how things are going here. Ralph likes the over. I certainly agree with that. Russell Gordy, unders everywhere, gents. You know what? They very well could happen. And like I just said a minute ago, you're worried about these bats the very first day after the All-Star break. These guys are used to being, swinging the bat, being in the lineup, being on the field every day. Maybe once in a while they get one day off a week or every 2 weeks. But this is irregular. This is 4 days off. You can't tell me you can't tell me that everybody that goes up to the plate today to face these pitchers is going to be in rhythm with their hitting, going into these games today. I can't. It's not going to happen across the board. We saw it last night. There was a lot of feeble at bats, a lot of weak contact. You could certainly see it in the game that played out last night between the Astros and the Rangers. And there's no doubt it is a concern for me in terms of peppering the board with overs today. Has to be. It has to be the main thing that worries you. Definitely when you're looking at betting games over the total. That is a factor that has to stand out in the back of your mind for sure. The layoff and how it could be a concern for offenses today. DJ Big Boss, welcome in. Hope the contest is doing good for you. Mally Mall, welcome in. Kendrick Brown, Bookie Lover Q, Cubs players saying they have a sense of urgency to win games. Yeah, that's true. Maybe they turn it up. That's another thing we're going to get to. We're going to get to some teams here later on in the card here where their seasons are probably already over. And I doubt the All-Star break is going to give them that shot in the arm that, hey, let's get it going again. Seattle Mariners are a team that stands out for sure in that regard. Baltimore, teams like that where it's just, you're trying to really play out the swing or play out the string, I should say, at this point. All right, let's get into the next game. We've got Washington, Philadelphia. It's the Nationals and the Phillies here. We've got Steven Strasburg on the mound for Washington. My fellow countryman from British Columbia, Nick Pivetta on the mound for the Philadelphia Phillies. We've got Washington minus 138 to minus 140, just shy of minus 140 right now in most spots. The total 9.5 shaded to the under in this game. Nationals are one of those teams that started to play better baseball toward the end of the first half of the season. We know early in the season what was the issue for the Washington Nationals. Well, their bullpen sucked. It blew so many games early in the season for the Washington Nationals, and quite honestly, their starting pitching, to be quite honest, other than Scherzer, is still a little bit dicey for this team. When you look at it, you just don't get that guy that every single time he goes out there, he's going to deliver the goods and give you a chance to win. Scherzer's been that one guy for the Nationals, but the problem is, a dominant, unbelievable force like Max Scherzer can't pitch every game for you. So you need some of these other starters in this rotation to step up. Strasburg has done that at times. His overall numbers for the season, it's 3.64 ERA. Washington has an 11-7 record with Strasburg on the mound this season in his 18 starts. On the road, a 3.19 ERA. He's been pretty solid, 6-3 Washington in his 9 road starts. You look at his track record against the Phillies. Well, he did face them once. It was early in the season. It was in this ballpark at Citizens Bank, and he got roughed up. 6 runs allowed by Strasburg in 4 innings of work, including 2 homers. So that's definitely something you want to make note of. A couple Phillies do have some pretty good track record against Strasburg in the past. We'll see how he fares here, but certainly he's coming off a gem prior to the All-Star break, albeit against the feeble, light-hitting Marlins. But 7.1 innings, 2 hits, shutout ball, 2 walks, 14 strikeouts for Strasburg in that game. Nick Pivetta, on the other hand, he had a terrible run of it coming into the All-Star break. Gave up 6 runs to the Nationals, gave up 4 runs to the Mets, 6 runs to the Braves in his last 3 starts before the break. Ugly 8.1 ERA in those last 3 starts for Nick Pivetta. At home, he's not really pitched all that well, 5.92 ERA. They sent him down to the minors earlier this season. They were thinking that could make some mechanical adjustments, maybe get his mind right again, be able to maybe bounce back in some form, but just hasn't happened for him. He's gone right back into the struggles that he had early on this season. So to me, it would be Washington or nothing for me in this game. It's not the greatest price in the world, -138, -140, and typically I don't like laying that kind of price on the road very often, but this is a Nationals or pass game for me from a side perspective. The total 9.5, not pretty neutral for me in terms of my opinion on the total. I think Pivetta might get hit a little bit, but I think Strasburg might be able to go in there and be able to pitch a good outing here against the Philadelphia Phillies. I liked his form going into the break. Again, it's always dicey because these pitchers are all off extended layoffs as well, much like the hitters. So just because you're in great form going into the break doesn't mean you're automatically going to have a great start your first time out of the break either. But I do favor Strasburg and the Nationals there in that one. New York Mets, Miami Marlins. We got Jason Vargas and Caleb Smith, your 2 pitchers in this one. We've got the Miami Marlins. How about that? Even money. You don't see that every day. Miami Marlins around -110 in this game. Total right now is about 8. And I got to give Jason Vargas a ton of credit. I'm the guy that keeps on betting against this guy every single start. And every single start, he's serviceable. He's keeping the Mets in the game. He's keeping the runs allowed down for the most part. This entire season. Like, there's been way more solid starts than bad ones on Jason Vargas's ledger, and I give him a ton of credit for that, no question. So props to him, no question with the way he's played. We know the Mets were an absolute disaster for the most part the last month of the season. Just one bullpen meltdown after another, just completely crippling this team, really taking them right out of the playoff race pretty much at this point. With all the blown leads that this Mets team has had to suffer through, now sitting there at a way below 500 record. Is this a team that you could say can get hot and maybe get back into it? I think offensively they've got the guys. You got to like what you've seen from this Mets lineup. For the most part this season, it's been a tremendous year for Pete Alonso, the rookie. It's been a great season for Jeff McNeil. It's been a horrible season for Robinson Cano. And the New York Mets are left scratching their heads here, saying to themselves, basically, why us? Why did we have to invest in Robinson Cano now at this stage? And in terms of return on investment, they're not getting it at all from Robinson Cano this season, this Mets team. And of course, the bullpen, as we've said, has been a really, really big black eye on this New York Mets team for the most part this season. So when you look at it from a perspective of Jason Vargas, you actually look back at his last 10 starts It's hard to believe. You have to do a double take. He has given up 3 runs or less in 9 of his last 10 starts. 3 runs or less, Jason Vargas. So, I've spent years and years just ripping on the poor guy. You got to give credit now where credit's due. He's been serviceable. Like I say, you have a 3.77 ERA on the season, Jason Vargas. That's pretty good. The Marlins overall, not great against lefties, you could say. They faced Vargas back in April, and Vargas pitched well against them, only allowed 2 runs in 5 innings. So pitched quite well against Miami. Caleb Smith, on the other hand, not the greatest of starts prior to the All-Star break for Caleb Smith. One thing we do know about the Mets, they can hit lefties. Their splits offensively against southpaws this season, pretty solid. 275 average, 4.86 runs per game for them against lefty pitching. So I definitely think they could hit Smith. I like Smith overall. I really do. But, I think the Mets match up pretty decent with him. Now, the one thing that Smith does have going for him is he's pitched relatively well in 3 career starts against the Mets. The one I'm more interested in, of course, is this year because, again, you're dealing with different teams, different roster combinations every season. But Caleb Smith gave up just 2 runs in 5 innings against the Mets in his 1 start against them earlier this season. So total of 8 in this game, first 5 under. First 5 under probably makes some sense in this game. I don't like the Miami bullpen all that much. I don't like certainly don't like the Mets bullpen. How on earth can you trust a full game under with the New York Mets for the last month and a half with what you've seen out of their bullpen for the most part? So I'm looking at this as a situation where first 5 under is probably the way I would go in this particular game if I were to bet it. Sidewise, it's tricky. It really is. I mean, certainly Mets-wise, first 5. If you like the Mets, take them first 5. You don't want to deal with the disaster and the dumpster fire that is that bullpen in the latter innings. If you like Miami, I would probably take my chances more on the full game. I'm pretty neutral on the side. I've given up betting against Vargas for now until I actually see signs of him getting absolutely lit up and hammered, and I've just not seen that from him. So first 5 under is probably the way I would lean in this one. Let's update how things are going in the chat. Ramon Scott, welcome in. Ramon Scott usually tunes in here with this chat. NL East, I dislike. Yeah, I mean, the NL East has been, to be honest with you, a pretty big disappointment outside of the Atlanta Braves. Okay, Washington's gotten it going a little bit prior to the All-Star break, but Philadelphia has been inconsistent. Their offense confounds me a little bit, this Philadelphia team. They have games where they can score 8 runs, then they have games where they score 1 run. So, and they've had a lot of that so far this season. So, Russell Gordy, I trust Darvish at home more than Archer on the road. Yes, that's tricky because he's been so bad at home, Darvish, but I hear what you're saying about Archer. No question. We mentioned that game a minute ago. San Francisco, Milwaukee. Let's move on. We've got the Battle of Andersons here. Sean against Chase Anderson in this matchup, Giants and Brewers. Milwaukee minus 180, total 9.5. Don't look now, but Milwaukee didn't play great baseball going into the All-Star break. I didn't love what I saw out of the Brewers. They had a really nice first couple of months, leveled off just a little bit prior to the All-Star break, 47 and 44. Suddenly just 3 games above 500 now, this Milwaukee team. And and their struggles are a big reason why the Chicago Cubs, despite not playing their best baseball prior to the All-Star break, they didn't pay the price for it because Milwaukee just didn't play well enough to take advantage of the way the Cubs were playing. So now you've still got this wide open battle pretty much here in the NL Central division right now. So, the Brewers and Cubs neck and neck at this point in time. Now let's see if the All-Star break maybe provides a little bit of a kickstart here, you could say, for Milwaukee, because again, this is not a team that played their absolute best baseball by any stretch of the imagination prior to the break. So we'll see how it goes for them here going into this series against the lowly, and I mean lowly, San Francisco Giants. Obviously, 41 and 48 definitely had their struggles. However, the Giants did at least a little bit start to play better toward the All-Star break. I mean, you look at these two teams just in terms of their form going into the All-Star break. Milwaukee was 4-6 in their last 10 before the break. San Francisco 7-3, in their last 10 before the break. So from that standpoint, the Giants started to get some offense The Giants started to get some better swings together. The Giants bullpen's actually been pretty decent this season, pretty good actually. And believe it or not, the Milwaukee bullpen, it's got a lot of questionable pieces in it outside of Josh Hader. Like, who on the Milwaukee bullpen do you really, really trust to say, hey, get me some outs here in the latter innings outside of Josh Hader? This is one dog that interests me here. Milwaukee just stumbled and they did the old Chris Berman going into the break, essentially. They rumbled, bumbled, and stumbled into the All-Star break, this Milwaukee Brewers team. And is Chase Anderson really a guy that we want to go out there and lay a $180 with, $185? Not me. I mean, Chase Anderson's 4.32 ERA overall, 4.54 ERA at home. There's nothing to write home about. Brewers are only 1-3 in his last 4 starts. And you look at the prices in those starts. Okay, the 3 he lost, there were, even money. He was a short favorite or even money. The one that he won against Seattle, 4-2, he was minus 196. Okay, so the one he was a big favorite. He did win in those last 4 Chase Anderson starts. But Seattle stinks. Seattle's terrible. They've shown you no signs of life. San Francisco has shown you some signs of life. Going into the All-Star break, did play better. And Sean Anderson, for the San Francisco Giants, struggled in his last start, 4 runs, 8 hits, 4 innings. But prior to that, pretty good consistency from Sean Anderson. 6 consecutive starts prior to that outing against San Diego where he gave up 3 runs or less. So the bottom line is I'm looking at San Francisco here. San Francisco as a dog definitely is one that interests me. Plus 170. Look, you saw it with the Houston Astros last night. Cannot be afraid in these kind of situations. First day after the All-Star break, you're going to have some monstrous prices that you can take advantage of because teams that are, especially good teams like Milwaukee, Houston, the Yankees, Boston, Cleveland, Minnesota, teams like this that have guys that are involved in the All-Star game and the All-Star week festivities, you can't expect them to be razor sharp and locked in again to play regular season baseball that very first game. Hell, maybe even that very first series over the entire weekend. That could be an issue. So this is the time where you can jump on maybe some good prices, betting against some teams that, the good teams. Milwaukee, good team. Houston, good team. I get that. I understand that. But you can take advantage of just the lethargic return, I guess you could say, to regular season baseball after the fun and pomp and circumstance that everybody enjoyed in All-Star break week. So that's why, to me, these are dubious prices. You want to lay prices today with Milwaukee, with the Yankees, be my guest. I'm not interested in doing it with any of these teams. So San Francisco, to me, is definitely a bet. I'm going to put a small play on it, half a unit probably. It's worth it. You can't. Chase Anderson's been average at best. Sean Anderson's actually had the better current form. San Francisco actually showed you something going into the break. So Milwaukee struggled going into the break. Milwaukee sent a ton of guys to the All-Star week. And that's usually the teams I like to go against, especially when they're laying these kind of prices like Milwaukee is. So I like San Francisco there at about plus 170 tonight. Next up, Arizona, St. Louis. We've got Robbie Ray, Adam Wainwright, your pitchers here. St. Louis minus 115, total 8.5. See what the chat's, by the way, saying about this Brewers game. A lot of same sentiment here on this game. A lot of same sentiment. Ramon Scott, great price on San Francisco. I think their offense is better on the road. Yeah, the Giants actually showed this is what you want to do. You want to look at the bad teams and say, who's bringing me an effort? Who gives a damn still? I'm not seeing that from Seattle or some other team. I saw a little bit of that from San Francisco. And let's not forget, this is Bruce Bochy's final season as the manager there. You think this team wants to go out and embarrass themselves for another 2.5 months in the final season of a manager that's done so much for this franchise and this organization, 3 World Series titles, a surefire Cooperstown-bound Hall of Fame manager, and he's going to the Hall of Fame. You can write that down. Bruce Bochy's going to be a Hall of Fame manager. There's no way he can keep him out. No way. His resume is too strong. He is going to be in the Hall of Fame. Do the Giants players want to urinate on his legacy by just playing pathetic baseball this entire season. I think that kind of mindset is starting to click in a little bit with this team. Like, hey, let's shape up here. Let's wake the fuck up here. This is a Hall of Fame manager we've got. What are you going to embarrass him on his way out and just be a 100-loss baseball team, 90-loss baseball team? No. We got to keep on giving it our best shot and see where it gets us. So in terms of the bad teams, or the teams that are struggling, where their effort may not slough off or go down in the second half, San Francisco, I've got my eye on them being one of those teams that will continue to put in the effort, play hard, even though they know they're well out of the playoff race because of the situation they're in. They're saying goodbye to a revered man and a revered manager in Bruce Bochy. So I think so. Just something to keep in mind. San Francisco, bad team, but something to keep in mind that maybe they're not going to pack it in and fold the tent like some of these other teams that are just beyond disastrous. Adam Wainwright, obviously, I have my issues with him. We know it's not been the Adam Wainwright of old. Now he faces this Arizona team in this particular matchup. St. Louis is a team that's really thoroughly disappointed in the first half of the season. To see this team, knowing what the players they have on it, knowing they got a Paul Goldschmidt in the offseason, to see them right at 500, I think it's very disappointing in my mind, considering where I have a future on the St. Louis Cardinals to win the World Series. That's how disappointed I am that they're 500 right now. I don't even feel confident there's a playoff team right now, let alone winning a World Series. So you're talking about a futures bet that looks bad right now. That's definitely one that I'm not very confident in right now, the St. Louis Cardinals, unless they can get things going right now. Osmano Man has got my back. He's looking out for me. He says, Ian, have a sip, bro. I think you're getting thirsty by now. You're damn right I am. But you know what? I'll wait till we get through this game, and then we'll get through, and then we'll get to a little drink to wet the whistle, so to speak, and then we'll continue on. But yeah, I mean, you look at St. Louis too. I mean, they're banged up a little bit. Carpenter on the DL, but he looks like he's going to be activated with that lower back strain. He's expected to be in the lineup tonight against Arizona. Colton Wong was banged up prior to the break as well, but they are expecting him in the lineup. Yadi Molina's on the injured list. I keep saying the DL, IL, the injured list. For a few more weeks. Marcell Ozuna, he's out indefinitely. So, they're battling some injuries as well. Marcell Ozuna, I don't give two shits that guy's out of the lineup. I think he gives you terrible at-bats more often than not. So, I don't mind him not being in there right now for the Cardinals. But look at the Cardinals. I mean, we talked about that San Francisco team that's playing a little bit better. Well, St. Louis lost 2 or 3 to them going into the break. Arizona swept Colorado going into the break. Robbie Ray, I've talked about it with Jimmy on the show when I'm on Thursdays with him, with Robbie Ray. My issue with him. Walks is a big problem. 54 walks in 104 innings is not good. I don't like that one bit. He gets the strikeouts. I understand that. That's why the metrics guys love Robbie Ray. I've always loved Robbie Ray. He gets the swings and misses, the strikeouts. They love that. They love that stuff when it comes to starting pitching. 137 strikeouts in 104 innings. That's just, eye candy to the quant guys out there. But to me, I see flaws in Robbie Ray. Even though he can get swings and misses. It's when the guy's on base, it's when the command and control problems creep up, and when this guy's got to pitch out of the stretch, it is a shit show. It is a disaster waiting to happen. He's not comfortable pitching out of the stretch. He never has been, and that's an issue that I always have with Robbie Ray when it comes to him pitching. 4.33 ERA for him on the road this season, which is nothing all that spectacular. The one thing that's good about Wainwright, though, we know we don't think highly of him, or at least as of late, the Cardinals have had a disastrous time trying to win with him on the mound. You look at Wainwright's last 10 starts, the Cardinals are only 3-7 in those 10 Wainwright starts, but he has given up 3 runs or less in each of his last 5 starts. He's been serviceable. He's been decent. He's given the team a chance to win. Problem is they just haven't been winning a whole lot for him. Against Arizona, he struggled against them. The time he faced them, although that was last year, 3 runs in 3.2 innings, has not faced the Diamondbacks yet this season. You look at the Cardinals against lefties, 244 average, 4.92 runs per game. Diamondbacks against Against righties, 245, 4.78 runs per game. A tricky game for me. Tricky game for me. I just don't like backing Ray. I don't. I know Arizona is certainly the team that is better right now, slightly, although that's not saying much. Arizona's just one game above 500. You look at the two bullpens this season. The Cardinals do have the better pen. Arizona pen's 4.45 ERA. St. Louis pen 3.86. That's a very tough game. I don't have much of an opinion, so I'll probably pass on it. We'll see what the chat says about this game. Maybe this is St. Louis maybe coming into this series and this second half of the season saying it's time to get our asses in gear. It's time to get going. We'll see if that starts tonight in this game. That remains to be seen. All right, we're going to take the sip now. I need it because I can tell the voice is starting to the cord is starting to cut a little bit here on that when I was breaking down that last game. All right, there we go. There's no guest, by the way, on this morning show, so it is definitely all me. Let's see what the chat's saying here about the last couple of games. The trade, of course, yesterday in the NBA. Tom Marino bringing it up with Russell Westbrook going to the Houston Rockets. Of course, the funny joke is that, hey, there's going to be not enough ball to go around. It'll be, Russell Westbrook and Harden fighting for possession of the basketball on the court. No, I want it. I want it. I want it. Give it to me. I want it. I know that's been the funny joke right now since this trade's been made. But let's be honest. I mean, Russell Westbrook's at least younger, a little bit more athletic than Paul. Chris Paul, I think, his shooting in particular, Chris Paul, it's really gone downward. The last season or so. It's just a question of can the chemistry fit? If the chemistry and cohesion fits with Westbrook and Harden in the backcourt, and then all of a sudden you've got pieces up front there as well for this team. Capella and company. The Rockets could be dangerous, but are we ready to all of a sudden make them the West favorite? No. You've got to see. First of all, D'Antoni's had been a playoff flop repeatedly. As a head coach in past years. So, let's see what ends up happening here with Houston. I'm saying take a wait and see approach. You got to see if the chemistry fits and the cohesion. And that's a big question mark right now, especially with two guys that love the ball in their possession as much as possible. You got to see if that chemistry and that cohesion is going to fit, if this is going to work. Ski Prophet saying the pace is going to be crazy. Oh, yeah, no kidding. Talk about pace. It's going to be a lightning bolt going down the basketball court every time they have the ball, every time they have possession during a game next season. That's the way it's going to be with the Houston Rockets. But I digress. We've got to move on to our next games on the card. Cincinnati, Colorado. What is this? What's going on today? We had the Anderson Bowl in the San Francisco-Milwaukee game, and now we got the Gray Bowl in this game, Cincinnati and Colorado. Two Grays on the mound. We've got John Gray on the mound for Colorado, and we've got Sonny Gray for Cincinnati. Sonny, yesterday, my life. Sonny Gray, Cincinnati. So we've got Colorado minus 125 favorites here. Total of 12, which is pretty much par for the course lately with games at Coors Field. We've seen a lot of overs at home for the Rockies. I know going into the All-Star break, I was betting some of these Rockies totals. 12.5, even 13. There was a game, Houston and Colorado at Coors Field before the All-Star break. The total was 13, and I bet it over the total, and it won. So you just had some absolutely crazy, massive high-scoring games at Coors Field for the Rockies, and several games at home with them going into the break. Cincinnati, they're a team I would watch out for in the second half. In terms of who do you think in terms of these bottom tier teams, below 500 teams that you could go into the second half and say, I think this team could be profitable in terms of plus units for the rest of the way. I think Cincinnati could be one of those teams. I like the way they played the last month or so better. Their lineup certainly hitting better. Scooter Gennett back certainly has helped them, although now, again, dealing with groin issues going into the break. So they got him back. Then he missed the last game before the break, groin issues, questionable for tonight. Since Nick Senzel got called up, I should say, that's also boosted this Reds offense just a little bit. I think their bullpen, for the most part, has been relatively decent. I'm still a little worried about their starting pitching. I like Castillo a lot, as long as Castillo can rein in the walks. Some of these other guys have been hit or miss, but Sonny Gray's been one of those guys that's been pretty solid for the Reds. 3.59 ERA on the season. Even DeSclafani at times, of all people, has given them a decent start here and there. And we know he's had a rough go of it with the Reds. But from a Sonny Gray standpoint, absolute gem in his last start against the Brewers. Shutout over 8 innings, 4 hits allowed, 12 strikeouts. He pitched pretty well against the Cubs before that. You look at Cincinnati's record with Gray on the mound, 5-0 in Sonny Gray's last 5 starts. They've been winning with Sonny Gray on the mound. John Gray, on the other hand, John Gray's pitched better. We've got 2 guys. This is a battle of 2 guys that have, in terms of current form going into the break, we're pitching quite well. And John Gray, all of a sudden, has found something for the Rockies. The Rockies are 7-2 in John Gray's last 9 starts. So it's been a much better go of it for him lately as well. At home, 3.35 ERA for John Gray, 3.79 ERA for Sonny Gray. So you look at Colorado's home games prior to the break. Dodgers, 4 games with the Dodgers, 2 games with the Astros, 6 home games before the break for Colorado. Their last 6 home games, 4 overs, 2 unders. Some crazy scores, 12-8, 13-9, 10-5, 9-8. You had some crazy scores. But you also had a 4-2 game against Houston with Lambert and Miley. That's not exactly the second coming of Sandy Koufax there. And you had a game as well that was 5-3 that stayed under the total. So 4 overs, 2 unders. This is not one I would want to bet over the total. I mean, both of these guys have pitched better lately. I would be looking probably at this game under the total, I should say. Under. I just want to make sure I get that right. Under the total is definitely the way I would be looking here. 12, it's a big number. I understand that. Let's see with Sonny Gray in terms of his past track record. He hasn't faced Colorado ever. Wow. So the thing is, at Coors Field, I always say this, I want to know how a pitcher historically has done at Coors Field. We have no evidence of how Sonny Gray is going to pitch at Coors Field because he has not pitched at Coors Field before. This will be his first time. So I'm definitely liking under here. Obviously it's always dicey when you don't know how a guy's going to react to pitching in these kind of elements, in this environment, in this bandbox, with the elevation and the ball just flying the way it does in Colorado. But, Gray's current form's still good. Take that chance perhaps that he can go in there and be decent, give you a solid outing. John Gray has certainly done pretty well against the Reds. He's 4-0, by the way, in his career against the Reds. Rockies have won all 4 John Gray starts against the Cincinnati Reds, although none of those were this year. They were all 2016, 17, and 18, so you have to factor that in. Of course, I put way more stock in John Gray's starts this year, or if one of those starts was this year as opposed to last year. Ski saying the Rockies bullpen is terrible. I agree with that. I like the full game under because I'll say this about the Rockies bullpen and all the bullpens. Even a bad bullpen has the chance to go out there today and pitch well. And here's why. First of all, the hitters aren't in rhythm. They've been off since Sunday. That's a concern. And second of all, even with the bad bullpens, they're rested. All the key arms and all the best arms in everybody's bullpen should be available and ready to go today. Nobody pitched yesterday. Nobody pitched, multiple days in a row out of anybody's bullpen. So you should have relatively fresh bullpens and key relievers available across the board for all of these teams going into these games today. So if there's a day that even for a bad bullpen, it could possibly be set up for them pitching well, perhaps it's today. Yeah, and Pie Guy makes a good point. The Rockies bullpen is Scott Oberg. Yeah, you're just maybe hoping that guy, maybe that a Buddy Black there in Colorado can maybe get 2-3 innings out of him tonight. We'll have to wait and see. All right, we're going to move on. We're going to try to go a little quicker. We got so many games we still got to get through. Atlanta, San Diego, Keuchel and Lamet. We've got even money price here. Total's actually gone up a little bit, 8.5 up to 9 in this game. Certainly, I like what I'm seeing lately out of Dallas Keuchel. I mean, the first start or two with the Atlanta Braves after joining this rotation, you could tell it's a guy that didn't have spring training. It's a little rusty, a little not really sharp, not locked in. First couple of starts, he wasn't that great, not on his game, but certainly did pitch better his last few starts going into the All-Star break, which is definitely a good sign moving forward. This is a very good series, actually. Atlanta's had a great first half. 54 and 37 overall, 11 units, plus 11 units of profit for the Atlanta Braves this season. So they've been making money for their backers. But, just because you make money for your backers in the first half of the season doesn't mean you're also going to be a profitable team and make money for them in the second half. Prices are adjusted. Atlanta now, people are aware of how good they are, the record-wise. You're not getting the bargains in the price or in the money line right now, or as much with the Atlanta Braves as you did earlier in the season. Again, Keuchel, better form his last 3 starts. He's given up 7 runs over his last 20 innings. That's a good sign for him moving forward. We'll see if he can get the job done here. I certainly like the matchup in theory for the Braves against Danielson Lamet here in this game. Lamet's a guy that to me, he's got some upside, but he's not been able to consistently put it together. He's not a guy that eats up innings, although that's no big deal. Everybody's bullpen fresh. 3 runs, 5 innings for Lamet. Did pitch well against Atlanta, but that was 2 years ago, so I don't put a ton of stock into that. A lot of new faces. Ronald Acuna wasn't in the lineup 2 years ago. Austin Riley wasn't on this team 2 years ago. So from that standpoint, you got to take that past start for Lamet against Atlanta with a little bit of a grain of salt. Current price here has got Atlanta slight road favorite. I would lean a little bit to Atlanta here. I really would. Braves won 2 of Keuchel's last 3 starts. You look at Danielson Lamet. And now all of these starts were 2 years ago, outside of the Dodgers start on July 4th, Independence Day. But in his last 8 starts, Padres 0-8 in Danielson Lamet's last 8 starts. They've just not won with him on the mound. So I would look at Atlanta here. I would. It's a reasonable number. It's even money. I think long-term, Atlanta is going to be a team where there's going to be some good prices maybe to go against them. I think they're going to level off a little bit. Like they're 54 and 37 right now, 17 games above 500. Are they really going to keep playing baseball at that kind of win clip and that kind of win percentage the rest of the way? For as good as their offense is, I'm not so sure. I doubt it in my mind. So to me, I'm looking at it here where Atlanta's playable in this price range. Obviously, I don't like betting Atlanta when they're laying these minus 150 or more. But I think they're worth a look here. I do like what I've seen out of Dallas Keuchel here. The last couple of starts he's had. All right, we shift now to the American League. We're on that part of the rotation order now. Blue Jays and Yankees. Aaron Sanchez, Domingo Germán, your 2 pitchers in this matchup. We've got New York minus 280. The total 11 across the board in this game. Here's one that on paper it stands out as an over. The Blue Jays hit the ball a lot better going into the All-Star break. You're seeing a lot of their youngsters, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Vlad Jr., Cavan Biggio. These guys really started to hit the ball better, toward the All-Star break. And the Blue Jays definitely a team that got their offense going a bit. Their pitching still is very, very suspect. I love how the Blue Jays made it sound like Aaron Sanchez's last start was a step in the right direction. No, it wasn't. He labored. He struggled. His pitch count got up. Okay, the number of runs he gave up was not quite as bad, but they rang up his pitch count. He was like at 80 pitches after 3 innings. How would you tell me that's a better start? You got to be economical too. You got to eat up innings. You can't be throwing 80 pitches in 3 innings. That's not an effective start in my mind. I don't care how many runs you give up. You have that pitch count just going up like skyrocketing up like a spaceship going out into the atmosphere. You got issues. So, and Aaron Sanchez against this Yankees team, I sure as hell don't trust him. Got absolutely bombed by the Yankees right here at Yankee Stadium just recently. It was a start against them in late June. 7 runs, 9 hits, 5.1 innings. Terrible outing for Aaron Sanchez against the Yankees in that game. So I don't trust him here. Domingo Germán, games go under, Mally Mall says in the chat. You know what? Germán's been pretty decent. I will say that about Domingo Germán. He's been solid. He's been really good at Yankee Stadium. 2.37 ERA, Yankees 4-1 in Germán's 5 home starts. You look at his recent outings; he's been decent. He had that one bad outing against Kansas City on the road Since then, he's been much better. Last 3 home starts for Germán, by the way, at Yankee Stadium. 3 runs against Boston, 3.2 innings. All right, that wasn't a great start there for him. But before that, 1 run against Milwaukee, 1 run against Baltimore at home, and 1 run and 6.2 innings against a very good Minnesota offense at Yankee Stadium. So he has pitched quite well, Domingo Germán, here at home this season. I'm kind of with you. The more I look into this, I was thinking full game over. I'm thinking now I could only maybe look Yankee team total over. I don't know if I would want to trust Toronto against Germán, given Germán's good results here so far this season at Yankee Stadium. So the thing that comes to mind here for me in this game would be Yankee team total over. Probably not a side that I'm going to get involved with. You never know. Again, I think team totals are a good way to go too, because you just don't know sometimes what you're going to get from some of these teams and pitchers after the break. So again, if you think they're going to at least hit the other pitcher, you take all that other nonsense out of the equation. You take out the nonsense that, hey, their starter might struggle. You take out the nonsense that, hey, well, how's this bullpen going to pitch? That's the great thing about betting team totals, you guys. It's that you could take out all that stuff that could screw you over and cost you a winning wager, and focus in on the element that you think is the strongest part of your handicap in a game. And that's, this lineup is going to hit that pitcher. And that's what I think is going to happen here with the Yankees against Sanchez. And I can throw out all the other BS right now about, oh, how's Germán going to pitch? How's the Yankee bullpen going to pitch? If I'm right about the Yankees hitting Sanchez, and I think they will, the Yankee team total over will get the job done for you. That's the path you take. That's the path you take, because you throw out all that other stuff that, is not as consequential to what you're thinking of in terms of your handicap of the game. So that's the way I would go. Maybe a Yankee team total over. And again, that's another thing you got to worry about with these Yankees full game totals. You're going to get Yankee games at home, especially. You're going to get them now 10.5 or more, I think, for the majority of at least throughout the rest of the summer. Odds makers aren't sleeping on how good this lineup is anymore. You're going to have to pay a little bit of a premium if you're going to bet full game overs with the Yankees moving forward. All right, we'll take another sip. Let's see how the chat's going. Well, I'm trying to keep up with that as best I can. A lot of good NBA talk, definitely. I know I'm still in NBA mode. Like, this is the time of year I'm like, all right, free agency's over for NBA. It's time to park it for a few months. Football's on the way. But I'm still very much enamored with what's going on with the NBA, to be honest. This is incredible stuff that's shaping up for next season. There is no way, none, zero, that you can't tell me that you're not excited, not intrigued, not fascinated by the season that's coming up in the NBA. With all of these teams that have made these moves, that all of these teams that think they can contend for a championship. Now, some of them will actually be able to contend for a championship, and some probably won't. But hey, this is as much intrigue going into an NBA season as I've seen in my lifetime. And I've been on this earth now for 34 years. So, to me, this is as interesting as I've ever been, interested as I've ever been in the NBA for sure. Next up, Tampa Bay, Baltimore. We've got Yanni Honey Nut Chirinos on the mound for the Tampa Bay Rays. Dylan Bundy, not Al Bundy, for the Orioles. Tampa Bay minus 155, total 9.5 here in this game. Bundy pitched a gem before the break against the Blue Jays. He was absolutely outstanding. I don't know where the hell that came from. I still think it's just a one-off, but absolutely amazing. You know what? And I love my hockey rem most. You say NBA off-season better than NHL off-season. I'm not going to argue that one bit. There's no doubt it's better. Incredible drama, unbelievable stuff you see that you didn't expect. Great things, definitely. Anyway, we're going to have to pick up the pace here. I don't really have much on this game, to be honest with you. Bundy was great before the All-Star break in the final start, but before that he was getting roughed up. Chirinos, to me, is a guy that I think is going to regress. Like, he's been actually pretty serviceable in the spot start role for Kevin Cash and the Rays for the most part this season. I'm not going to argue that, but got roughed up finally a little bit in his last start. I think there's going to be times where you can maybe go against this guy a little bit. I don't know if Baltimore's a team I want to do it, but not much on this game because Bundy's a wild card to me moving forward. So I think it's definitely going to be a situation for me where that game, not a whole lot on it. 9.5, that's a pretty high number for a Tampa game. So we'll move on. Minnesota, Cleveland. Gibson against Clevenger. Clevenger and the Indians -140, total 9. You know what? I'd be worried about backing Minnesota in this series because Cleveland's got that situation right now where they feel they're starting to put it together. We can catch Minnesota for first place in the Central Division, even though we've still got a lot of work to do. We're still several games behind. We can do this. And Minnesota, for as great a season as they've had, and it's been a great season, that lineup is great. They've gotten serviceable starting pitching. Their bullpen's not been as good lately, but for the most part, they've held it together. Rocco Baldelli not showing any jitters or inability to effectively manage in his rookie year. It's been great stuff from the Twins. This is where the rubber meets the road now. We're past the All-Star break. Trade deadline's coming up in Major League Baseball. Let's see what the Minnesota Twins do moving forward. Let's see if is the pressure going to ratchet up for this group a little bit. This is an interesting series here moving forward here, and this this Cleveland team is definitely going to think that we can still catch this team. This team's never been here before. They've never felt the experience of a target on their back like it is right now. This is going to be definitely a fascinating series this weekend because if Cleveland wins 2 out of 3 this weekend, or dare I say it sweeps the Twins, it's race on in the AL Central. It's race on for first. So this is a big-time series here with these two teams. So very fascinating to see. Gibson's, for the most part, has been pretty decent this season, I'll be honest, for the Minnesota Twins. We'll see if he can keep it up in this one. Clevenger, I was worried about him a little bit coming off the injured list. He really didn't show great in his. Not just didn't show great. He was absolutely lit up that first start when he came back from the injured list. But this is a good pitcher still. It's just a question of can he settle in, get in a groove, work his way back from that injury stint, and be solid for the most part for this Cleveland team moving forward. He's got that capability in him. I haven't seen it yet. He's obviously had a rough go the few starts he's had since returning for this Cleveland Indians team. You look at it, 7 runs he gave up to Baltimore, 5 runs he gave up to Texas. Much better in his last outing, though. Kansas City before the break, shut them out in 6 innings, 9 strikeouts, no walks. Maybe that was a sign that Clevenger's going to be back on the beam here for this Indians team. It just got that feel to me. Like I probably would lean Twins here, but I'm staying off Minnesota this entire weekend because I feel this is a statement series for Cleveland. Cleveland's in the trail position. Cleveland's trying to nab this Twins team. They're going to take this series very seriously. Not that the Twins won't. Twins want to maintain their edge, but this is going to be a series. I think Cleveland wants it. Cleveland wants to close this gap, and Clevenger was much better last time out, and they played really well going into the break, Cleveland as well. So I think the price was tantalizing initially for me with Minnesota, but I'm passing. I'm not going to get involved. Houston, Texas, we've got Cole against Chavez. Houston -210, total 10 shaded to the under. Second game of this series, guys. Second game. Remember, these guys played last night. The only game in Major League Baseball last night following the All-Star break. Chavez, to me, is a guy that's going to regress a little bit. I know he's been solid out of the in the spot start role for Texas, but I don't know if I trust him here. Garrett Cole, other than giving up home runs here and there, has been pretty solid for the most part for the Houston Astros. Not going to lay the price, though. Like, I think it favors Houston. Bounce back after getting shut out at home. I don't think much of Chavez in terms of being a long-term bet-on pitcher for me. So I think Houston wins this game, but I'm not going to lay that price. No way. And if you want to take a chance with Texas, a decent enough team that surprised a lot of people here in the first half of the season at the nice price they've gotten, I certainly wouldn't talk you out of it. Detroit, Kansas City, going to skip that because we have no starting pitcher named yet for the Tigers. It will be Danny Duffy for the Royals in that one. Kansas City -145, total 9.5 in that one. I'd lean Royals probably a little bit, but the Royals aren't the kind of team I run out there to lay a $1.45 with. I just don't. Seattle, LA Angels, down to our last 3 games on the Friday MLB card. Mike Leake for the Mariners on the mound. His counterpart will be Taylor Cole for the Angels. We've got the Angels laying a nice price here. or a big price, I should say. No, it's not nice. It's pretty big. It's expensive. Minus 160. The total 10 shaded to the under in this game. I will not be backing Seattle anytime soon. Like this to me as a team that is just going through the motions, get this season over with. It's absolutely awful, in my opinion. What Seattle's let's not forget Seattle started 13-2. That's how bad the run has been for them. They started this season 13-2, and they've been absolutely brutal, positively awful ever since then. I'm not a big Mike Leake guy. I'm just not. The Angels are going with this opener business again, which a lot of teams are. It's going to be Taylor Cole and then Felix Pena. Pena's actually been somewhat surprisingly good in the opener role for the LA Angels. Leake to me on the road's not been any good. 5.08 ERA for him on the road this season. So you got a guy that doesn't pitch deep, a guy that's got a bad road ERA in Mike Leake, and a bullpen that is absolutely awful. And I can't say that word strongly enough. Awful. Awful. The Seattle Mariners bullpen. Just wanted to get that crystal clear. Awful. No, I don't want Seattle. You go Angels -1, Angels run line. Seattle is, to me, they've got the makings of a mail it in team the rest of the way. Scott Service is a lame duck manager. He's not coming back. There's going to be some changes with this group moving forward. I would definitely look at Angels on the run line in some form. The under, yeah. I'll tell you what, I don't know if Seattle's going to score against the Angels because I like the way this situation's been for them. But I'll tell you what, Seattle, you're going to trust Leake and that horrible bullpen to keep the Angels off the scoreboard. That's my one concern. Pena is trashy, and I usually think he is too. But I'm saying he's had a couple of outings in there where he's been not quite as bad in terms of being in this little, coming in after the opener rule. Anyways, but bottom line is it's Angels or nothing for me. I'm not looking to back Seattle anytime soon. White Sox and Athletics. Mike Fiers, who has been awesome at home. I don't take that away from him, but still -180 with this Oakland team. That's a big number. It's a big number for Oakland. The total 9.5 shaded to the under. Ivan Nova's a conundrum that I still can't figure out, to be honest with you. He just is. This guy, it seems when I bet on him, he stinks. Bet against him, and he throws actually a pretty good game. That's been my pattern lately with Ivan Nova. I think I was on the over Sunday when he pitched against the Cubs, or against the Cubs it was. He pitched pretty good in that game, to be honest. Really good, in fact, Ivan Nova. And in fact, his last 3 starts, 3.57 ERA, a little bit better. How he shuts out the Cubs in 5.2 innings, I'll never know, but he did. And he's a tough guy to read because you look at it, 4 runs, 4 runs, 4 runs. Then he has a gem against the Cubs, 5 runs, 4 runs, and then another gem against the Cubs. So maybe he's just got something where he pitches well against the Cubs. Cubs can't figure him out. And how the Cubs, with still a pretty good lineup, can't figure him out is beyond me, because really that's been the only 2 good starts he's had since the end of May, when he gave up just 1 run against Kansas City. So since that 1 good start against Kansas City, his only 2 good starts have come against the Cubs. So maybe that's telling you something. Maybe Nova just matches up very well with the Chicago Cubs. Fiers, as I mentioned, Fiers has been on fire. He's been dumpster fires at times earlier this season when he wasn't pitching well, but he's been much better at home. 5-2, 2.91 ERA here in the Coliseum. Athletics 6-4 record in his 10 home starts. He's given up now 2 runs or less in 5 consecutive starts. So to me, Ivan Nova's not pitched well lately against anybody other than the Chicago Cubs. You look at his track record against Oakland, it's all starts that he made 7 years ago, 3 years ago against Oakland, so you can't really factor that into the handicapping equation. Again, I think Oakland probably wins the game, but I'm not going to lay -180 with them or Fiers, so probably a pass for me overall. Maybe the game stays under, maybe. Fiers has been really good at home, but again, is Nova what Nova are you going to get? That's what concerns me. I would lean under the total, but probably not going to get involved. Last game on the board, baseball-wise, then we'll quickly get to the CFL game and then wrap the show up. LA Dodgers, Boston, Kenta Maeda, and Eduardo Rodriguez, your two starting pitchers here. Boston, minus 110, minus 115, total 10.5 in this game. Very good series, obviously. Very good series. You've got two teams definitely in the playoff mix. Boston trying to hang around the wild card chase. Dodgers just having an incredible first half, 60-32. Seems like they had one miraculous, dramatic comeback win after another. No question about it. Outstanding first half of the season from them. Very good lineup. Bellinger's been amazing. Muncy, Turner, Peterson. I mean, it's just a really, really good, sound Dodgers offense. All they need is just some pretty decent pitching. Their bullpen, trying to explore ways to improve that. Let's not forget Corey Seager as well. Hasn't played for a while. Yeah, he's been on the injured list. Expected to be activated from that injured list and be in the lineup tonight for this series opener against Boston. So just another bat added to the lineup for the Dodgers if Corey Seager is indeed back for them tonight against the Red Sox. Maeda's not been good on the road. Maeda's get 5.52 ERA for Maeda. I don't like that he's given up 7 home runs in those 44 innings pitched on the road. That's not a good fit and a good sign when you're pitching at Fenway like he'll be pitching tonight. Boston, on the other hand, 4.34 home ERA for Eduardo Rodriguez, obviously coming from that left-handed side. Did have 2 good starts prior to the break. 2 runs allowed to the potent Yankee lineup. 1 run allowed against Detroit. His numbers against the Dodgers, hasn't faced them yet this year. The Dodgers, they've shown the ability. We've had issues in the past with Dave Roberts' team being able to hit lefties. They've been solid enough. Better this year against lefties to this point. Red Sox have fared better against righties. This has an over potentially written on it, but maybe a first 5 over. I'd feel better with the first 5 over in this game. You got 2 rested pens. I know 2 bullpens that have been a little bit erratic, but the Boston bullpen, even though they've struggled a lot in the first half, they're rested. Same with the Dodgers. I do think Maeda is going to give some up here to Boston tonight, and I do think when I'm looking at it, I think Rodriguez is a guy that the Dodgers lineup might be able to have some success against as well. So looking at this game over first 5, I would lean full game over as well, but would lean over the total first. Maybe a lean to Boston. It's not easy to go against the Dodgers, but I just don't like what the numbers I'm seeing from Maeda and his ability to give up and his problems giving up home runs. Problems on the road in particular, and his problems giving up home runs on the road in a ballpark like Fenway concern me tonight when it comes to Kenta Maeda. So I'm looking at potentially the Red Sox and first 5 over, and even full game over, but especially first 5 over in this game tonight, Red Sox Dodgers. All right, quickly, CFL game. We have one on tap tonight, Toronto and Winnipeg, Argos and Blue Bombers, the undefeated Winnipeg Blue Bombers, the winless Toronto Argonauts, and that is why the point spread is where it is. Winnipeg laying more than 2 touchdowns, 14.5-point home favorites, the total 51.5 across the board in this game. And to me, when I analyze this game, I don't know how Toronto scores. Their offense hasn't scored more than 20 points in any game this season. The last time they were on the road, they only scored 7 points against Saskatchewan. And I'll tell you right now, Winnipeg's defense has played better than Saskatchewan's defense so far. This is not a quarterback issue. They weren't good with James Franklin at quarterback. I didn't see much improvement in that Toronto offense last week with McLeod Bethel Thompson at quarterback. This is a scheme issue. This is an offensive line problem for Toronto. The offensive line is offensive. All right, they can't pass protect. They're not blocking well enough for the ground attack of James Wilder Jr. That offensive line is getting ambushed. That offensive line of Toronto is getting their tails kicked every single week in the trenches. They're losing the battle along the line of scrimmage when they have the ball on offense. Period. You could put anybody up behind that offensive line right now at quarterback for the Argos. I don't see them moving the ball until they shore up the offensive line because it's been hideous. Offensive line play has been hideous for the Argos. And it's to show how bad it's been. It was even worse than the hideous offensive line play I saw from the BC Lions last night. So that's a concern for me. Winnipeg's defense gets Adam Bighill at linebacker. back for this game. He didn't play last week, and that defense still went out there and played extremely well on the road, getting that 29-14 road win against the Red Blacks. I do not want the Toronto Argonauts here. And I understand you're paying a premium here with Winnipeg. They're 3-0 straight up, 3-0 against the spread. They're playing a bad football team. That's why you're laying 14.5 in this game. But I don't know how Toronto finds the end zone consistently. I don't know how they move the football consistently. Unless Winnipeg makes a ton of mistakes, turns the ball over, and gives Toronto a short field to work with, I don't see Toronto getting gradual first downs and moving the chains against this Blue Bombers defense that's been excellent this season. They've been good against the pass. They've been outstanding against the run. Number one run defense in the CFL. And Wilder Jr. is the guy they lean on quite a bit, the Argos. I don't think it's going to be easy for him to run against that stout run defense of the Bombers tonight. So I see Pie Guy in the chat saying Toronto team total under 18.5. I have no argument with that whatsoever. I don't think Toronto's going to score a ton of points tonight. I like the full game under. Again, listener and viewer beware. Ian Cameron likes an under. It's probably going over. I'm going to warn you right now. I am the curse to the under better. I am the curse to an under. But I like this one under. I don't know how Toronto scores. And Winnipeg's got a great defense. It's 51.5. Winnipeg, and another thing too, you got to expect Winnipeg's going to have the lead late in this game. Matt Nichols is back. Shadow pointing that out. Thank you very much. That's going to help the offense. And Toronto's defense, they did take a step forward last week. They're still not great, but Winnipeg's offense certainly is going to put up some points, but you're going to have to put up a lot of points, I think, if you're Winnipeg to get this game over the total. And one thing we've seen with Winnipeg, they have Andrew Harris, and they have a run game and an offensive line, and we saw it play out to perfection this way last week against Ottawa. Have a lead in the fourth quarter. Run the football, run the football, run the football. Take time off the clock. Gradual, methodical, time-consuming drives are the MO of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers when they have a lead. And if you're an under-better, that's the exact kind of thing you want to see when your team is leading late in the fourth quarter, trying to put the game away. You want to see them run that football, take time off the clock. That's exactly what Winnipeg did last week against Ottawa, and it's what they're capable of doing against most teams in the CFL with that strong ground game of Andrew Harris and a very good run-blocking offensive line. So the under is definitely my favorite play in this game. Not much on the side. I've cashed with Winnipeg each and every week so far this season. I'm not going to lay 14.5 though. There's been a big time adjustment here with the Bombers, but I've not seen anything out of Toronto that makes me want to take the points. So for me, I'm not involved in the side. I do like the under 51.5. And as Pie Guy mentioned in the chat, Toronto Argos team total under probably makes a lot of sense as well. Just a hard time envisioning the Argos moving the football. We're going to wrap up the show in 2 minutes. Before we do, quickly on the two Saturday CFL games, looking at the two games taking place. These, in terms of the totals, I'm interested in the over in both of them. Montreal and Ottawa. Montreal's offense is way ahead of their defense. Vernon Adams has actually been capable. I think Dominique Davis and the Ottawa offense, they got shut down for the first time last week against Winnipeg, but to me, Winnipeg's got arguably the best defense in the CFL. Montreal does not. They don't have anywhere close to the best defense in the CFL. So I think Dominique Davis and the Red Blacks offense will have a much better game here in this one. Probably would lean over the total there. 9's a lot of points to lay with Ottawa. But Montreal's been 7-1 against the spread last 8 games dating back to last year. Montreal, they've been good in this underdog role. So I like the spot for Ottawa, bounce back at home off a loss, but I don't know if I want to lay 9. May just look over the total there. Calgary, Hamilton, I'll be honest, I was liking Hamilton at Pick'em to -3. I did not expect them to open up -6, although lots of Calgary money's coming in now. It's down to 4, even some 3.5s now. I can't argue with that. I thought Hamilton was laying a few too many points at the opener, but it's a dubious spot for Calgary. You're on the road for a second straight week after you had a tremendous comeback win against BC. You pummeled Saskatchewan on the road, still banged up on defense, but you're playing a team outside your division now. I smell that this could be a little bit of a letdown spot for Calgary this week, but I'm going to need that number to come down a bit more before I back Hamilton. I was looking at pick them to -3. It's a little bit more. So definitely lean Hamilton, and another game where I think we'll see points. Nick Arbuckle's played great. Calgary defense is still banged up. Nick Arbuckle's played great in place of Bo Levi Mitchell for Calgary. I think Hamilton's offense will do some damage back home against a banged-up Calgary defense, so would lean under. All right, before we wrap up, Vitalis in the chat, would you lay 14 with Winnipeg? Less than 14, yes. Maybe even 14, but not anything more than 14. That's why I'm passing on Winnipeg. I lean Winnipeg. I don't see Toronto doing a whole lot, but not sure I would want to lay more than 14. That's why I'm going to pass on that. Thanks to everybody in the chat. I did my best to try to acknowledge you guys in the chat today. I didn't do enough of that the last time I hosted this show. Ramon Scott, great numbers there. Hamilton 2-0 against the spread at home. Calgary 0-2 against the that's actually not true. Calgary was in Saskatchewan last week. They won and covered. Sorry, Ramon. I hate to prove you. I hate to say you're wrong, but or call you a liar. But yeah, Calgary won and covered last week against Saskatchewan. So that is a road ATS and straight up win last week for the Stampeders. But nevertheless, thank you to everybody in the chat. Thanks for putting up with me, hosting and filling in for Jimmy the Bag. And one more reminder. Tonight, 6 p.m., downtown Toronto, Wild Wing, corner of King and Bathurst. Jimmy the Bag, the Low Baggers, myself, I'll be there. Taylor Stevens, Sonny Vega, a bunch of the Mr. Gogster. I don't see Mr. Gogster in the chat, probably because he's on his way to Toronto as we speak. But, a bunch of the Southern Ontario, Toronto area Betting with the Bag crew and supporters and viewers will be there tonight at Wild Wing in Toronto. We're looking forward to it, 6 p.m. and onward. I'm going to throw back some beers, throw back some shots, have a lot of fun. They have a great music jukebox in that place. I will be putting all kinds of coins and money into that throughout the night, maybe giving a couple karaoke sessions. You don't want to miss that. It's going to be a lot of fun. And obviously chat, ton of sports, bet what's going on tonight, baseball, CFL. So we're looking forward to it. Make sure you join us if you're in the Toronto area for that. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. I'm Ian Cameron. Join us at 5:30 p.m. Eastern right here on the SBR channel for our late afternoon edition of Betting with the Bag. Drew Martin will be filling in for Jimmy as host of that. Thanks to everyone for watching. Good luck today with your bets, and tune in at 5:30 for the PM edition of Betting with the Bag. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good luck today.